House to Home, brought to you by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.
Statistics unfortunately show these days that 1 out of every 2 marriages tragically end in divorce. Now, hopefully those end in an amicable fashion, but quite often not. So you might be asking, what happens to a mortgage if a husband and wife are both co-signers on that? Fortunately, we have someone way smarter than myself, Liz Duenas from RE/MAX Diamond Realty Guam. Hafa Liz.
Hafa thanks for having us.
Now, I'm sure you've seen your number of cases involving marriages, separations, divorce, and everything like that. Simply stated and everything like that, if a couple should divorce, what becomes to the home they own?
Okay. We've had situations where a couple or one individual will come in and they want to sell their home. So, and then they would relate that they just got divorced. So one of the things I would ask how is the mortgage held? Is it held in both names? And if they want to sell, both parties have to agree. So I usually ask, do you have a divorce decree? Because that will state who gets the home, or did the court order state that the home is to be sold and mortgages to be paid, and then the proceeds, how is that to be divided? So your divorce decree normally will stipulate how the liquidation of that property will go. Now sometimes the couple, when they get a divorce, they decide, well, one party will keep the house. And if that's the case, if the mortgage is under both names, irregardless of who's keeping the home, that mortgage still has to be satisfied. So in order to satisfy that, one party who supposedly is keeping the home may have to refinance and place a mortgage under their name alone in order for them to keep it, because
for the full remaining value of the
full value of whatever's in that mortgage. And what they usually would do is have an arrangement where maybe the one party that's taking the home will pay an amount to the other party. Now, if the mortgage is rather large, and sometimes they'll say, well, I'll take care of the mortgage, we'll just walk away. But just remember, we're a community law here on Guam, so everything's 50-50 if you're married. So that falls down to the bills as well.
Yeah, now what should happen if, say, because it is an equal split, say Tarzan and Jane are happily married and everything, and then Tarzan and Jane decide to divorce, if one of them should not make their payments, like going forward, even like a few months, and what happens to, is it only that person's credit who doesn't make both parties
If the mortgage is still under both names and one party takes over the property and continues to pay the mortgage, that mortgage is still the responsibility of both parties. So if one fails to pay and it affects the credit rating, it will affect both parties. It will not just affect one party, it will affect both names that are on that mortgage. So yes, it's unfortunate that even in a divorce, if the mortgage is under both names, that mortgage, the bank will follow both names. They won't relieve one over the other unless they refinance the property. So the unfortunate part is if one doesn't pay, the other party's credit is messed up as well.
Both parties can sink
parties,
because of
yes,
that.
yes.
Tarzan and Jane.
Yes.
Where does your scope of responsibility begin and end? Like, where does your responsibility end? Where does the lawyers begin? Because obviously it gets to be a legal matter.
So of course the lawyers handle the divorce, and in their divorce decree they will indicate who gets what. And of course that's a settlement that they handle on their own. When they come to us, the objective that we have is to, of course, liquidate the property, put it on the market and for sale. Now, in putting it for sale, we got to make sure that both parties are in agreement that they're to sell it. And if there's a divorce decree, of course, that they'd have to follow what that decree states. So if it states the property is to be sold and the mortgage is paid, and any difference that is left would be divided 50-50 between both parties. Or it'll, whatever that decree states, that would be followed. And we normally would notify the escrow office of what the instructions would be based on what the two parties tell us.
Now, we've only been talking to this point about husband and wife separating from that point. What if there are children involved and, the property was to be, as we've learned in the past couple of weeks, it would be deeded to future generations and everything like that. How about if you involve more people?
It just depends, because sometimes couples do agree, okay, we're divorcing, however, the house is going to go to Johnny, for example. So provided the mortgage is satisfied, there's no problem. Then they could take action to prepare, the attorneys will take action to prepare the documentation to deed. I know one party, when they got divorced, the house went to the daughter. So there was paperwork. One party had to take action because the decree says one thing. Now, it just doesn't happen when the decree says it. Somebody has to take the action to have the paperwork prepared, to deed it as it states from one party to the other, take it to land management, and record it. Because even though it states it, unless action is taken, the paperwork, the process to get to record it, then it effectuates exactly what was dictated.
Oh, remarkable. Okay, well, last question, then we'll go to commercial break. How often does this kind of situation happen on Guam?
We have cases. I mean, it's unfortunate that we do get these cases. Every month there could be one case that comes in. And of course, we have so many agents, but if you're talking about the island, I'm sure there are cases that each office does receive. And our job is just to liquidate the property so that whatever their decree states is handled. Sometimes even before that, a couple will come in, and even before a divorce, and just say, well, we want to sell. But they're separating. So as long as both parties are in agreement, we cannot start the steps unless all the holders sign the document.
And unfortunately, in today's day and age, till death do us part doesn't always last that long. So it's good to know that people like you, as well as attorneys, are there to hopefully smooth the process along. So thank you for the information.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate it. All right, everybody, please stay tuned. There is more coming up after this.